Hello guys, this is Mr. Frederick M. Alvarez of Cabarwa National High School. Welcome back for another virtual instruction on Mathematics 10. Quarter 4, Week 2, Points to Remember. With learning competency, calculates a specified measure of position of a set of data. These measures of position are quartiles, deciles, and percentiles using the group data. A group of data can be divided into 2, 4, 10, or 100 equal parts, called quantiles. So what are the different formulas in computing specified measure of position of a set of data? So we begin with quartiles. Q sub k is equal to L sub b plus quantity k times n over 4 minus capital F sub q divided by small f sub q times I. Since quartile is divided into 4 equal parts, so we divide k times n by 4. And we use q just to emphasize that we are solving for quartile. Where q sub k is the desired quartile, L sub b is the lower boundary of the quartile class, n is the total frequency or the total number of cases, capital F sub q is the cumulative frequency, small f sub q is the frequency of the quartile class, I is for the size of the class interval, k is the nth quartile where n is 1, 2, or 3. So for quartile 1, we have the lower boundary of the quartile class plus n over 4 minus the cumulative frequency divided by the frequency of the quartile class multiplied by the interval. Take note that k is equal to 1. For quartile 2, we have the lower boundary of the quartile class plus quantity 2 times n over 4 minus the cumulative frequency divided by the frequency of the quartile class times the interval. So k here is equal to 2. For quartile 3, we have this formula. So the lower boundary of the quartile class plus quantity 3 times n over 4 minus the cumulative frequency divided by the frequency of the quartile class multiplied by the interval. So we have these different formulas for solving quartile. We have the next formula, which is computing for deciles. So we have d sub k is equal to L sub b plus quantity k times n over 10 minus capital F sub d divided by small f sub d times I. Since decile is divided into 10 equal parts, so we divide k times n by 10. And we use d to emphasize that we are solving for decile. Where d sub k is the desired decile, L sub b is the lower boundary of the decile class, n is the total frequency or the total number of cases, capital F sub d is the cumulative frequency, small f sub d is the frequency of the decile class, I is for the size of the class interval, k is the nth decile where n is equal to 1, 2, 3 up to 9. Example, if we will solve for decile 1, so we will have the lower boundary plus quantity n over 10 minus the cumulative frequency divided by the frequency of the decile class times the interval. Another example, So this will be for the formula in solving for decile 5. So we have the lower boundary plus 5 times n over 10 minus the frequency or the cumulative frequency divided by the frequency of the decile class times the interval. So you just substitute 5 to our k. We just write 5 here. And then another example, we have decile 8. So we just change or we substitute 8 to our k. And then take note that when you say decile, it is always divided by 10. Let's also have the formula in solving for percentiles. So we have P sub k is equal to L sub b plus quantity k times n over 100 minus capital F sub p divided by small f sub p times I. Since percentile is 100 equal parts, so we divide k times n by 100. And we use p just to emphasize percentile. Where p sub k is the desired percentile, L sub b is the lower boundary of the percentile class, n is the total frequency or the total number of cases, capital F sub p is the cumulative frequency, small f sub p is the frequency of the percentile class, I is the size of the class interval, k is the nth percentile where n is equal to 1 up to 99. Let's say we solve for p percentile 15. So it is equal to the lower boundary plus quantity 15 times n over 100 minus the cumulative frequency divided by the frequency of the percentile class times the interval. So we just substitute 15 to our k. Next example, we have percentile 45. So we have the lower boundary plus quantity 45 times n over 100 minus the cumulative frequency divided by the frequency of the percentile class times the interval. Again, we change k by 45. The last one, we have percentile 80. So we have the lower boundary plus 80 times n over 100 minus cumulative frequency divided by the frequency of the percentile class times the interval. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So when we say quartile, it is divided by 4 or 4 equal parts. For decile, divided by 10. And for percentile, we have divided by 100. Thank you once again and stay tuned for the next virtual instruction.